Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
This is my top 5 TV series of 2020. Starting off with my number 5 pick. Now, this is not just TV shows. This could be limited series, documentary series, etc., etc. Short format, let's say. The barrier between TV and movie and all that kind of stuff is blurred, but you get what I'm saying. TV shows, TV series. So starting off with my top 5 is Upload, a new show on Amazon Prime, a show that I heard about like a month ago. Kind of looking forward to it. Recommended on the /Filmcast by Devendra Hardawar. A show that has like Good Place vibes, if you've seen that. It has a premise that is very similar to like a Black Mirror episode, where afterlife is like a simulation. You can have a simulated afterlife. You can upload yourself into basically a virtual world and exist there after you die. And that's kind of the premise of this show. Where there's this guy who's kind of a douchebag, but you get to know a little bit more about him, and he becomes less of a douchebag, but a pretty boy. And he's in it. Like, the world building, first off, is amazing in this. So amazing, so much detail, very much like a Demolition Man, where that had just kind of new ideas of how society works and stuff like that. It really felt like a potential accurate representation of what the future will be like. So self-driving cars are a thing. In your kitchen, there's food printers. If you're poor, you get a food printer and it prints out food. You download like recipes or whatever, and you're able to just print meals. Rich people eat actual real food still. While more the poor and middle class have these food printers. I'm sure poor people don't even have food printers, but just all the company names are like amalgamations. Like there's Oscar Mayer Intel, there's Samsung, Google, Nokia, Taco Bell. Just a very, very interesting, because that's what everything. I mean, look at like Disney, even though they maintain their Disney name. But they own like so many things. Like you could call Disney, Fox, Marvel, ESPN, ABC. Like you could use all those things to describe Disney. But Disney is the sole name that goes on that. But so you're in this world. This guy who's like a coder. He's in a car accident, a self-driving car. The car malfunctions, stops listening to him. He can't go in overdrive. Manual overdrive, and it just plows into the back of, I don't remember if it was like a dump truck or a semi. It was not a good situation. He's in the hospital, and in the hospital, he's like awake, and his girlfriend is presenting him with the contract to sign to be uploaded. And you find out that his injury is a collapsed lung. You're dying due to a collapsed lung, right? Which, collapsed lung, nothing good. Former co-host of the Inspired Disorder podcast, Keith Spurlock, had a collapsed lung once. Terrified him. But he survived pretty easily. You just go to the hospital, and then you just have to let they let out the air, and then you just kind of let your shit heal. But in this, it's like treated like a life or death thing, because uploading is so popular. So for any like mild, seems like in this world, any mild ailment you may have or accident you may have, instead of them trying to fix you, uploading seems to be, and it's like integrated. They have the upload site at the hospital. That's like the reality you're living in. So you see this guy, he gets uploaded, and then you're basically following him in this like this world, this like if capitalism was the afterlife, if heaven was the capitalist view of heaven, where you pay for everything, and if you don't have any money, then you just get frozen until somebody adds money to your account. Very scary existence, as it were, especially if you're uploaded to one of these virtual heavens, and you run out of money and you just get frozen and you're tucked away somewhere, and then you just don't exist until maybe forever. And you never quote unquote die, maybe. I don't know. It like brings up a lot of kind of existential questions, but I really enjoyed the movie, the show. It was a little cheese because it has that kind of Good Place vibe where it's fun. It is a funny show. I love all the characters as well. But it took a while. It took a few episodes for me to get into it. The episodes are short, 20, 30 minutes, 10 episodes in total. I think I've burned through the show twice. It is a show that you can kind of have on in the background and then just kind of look up every once in a while and still get a lot out of it. But it's got so much, and if you do that, if you're somebody that does get distracted while you watch stuff, if you go back and rewatch it, you're going to see so many other little details that you didn't even notice. Most likely, you're going to see some details that you didn't notice because there is so much detail put into like how everything works. Now, the angels that are like the tech support people that work for this company don't really believe that they would actually hire humans. We're like so far in the future where like companies are already using AI bots for tech support already today, more so than self-driving cars or more so than uploading yourself. So that I didn't really buy, but that is what opens up this kind of love story that happens between the angel, the tech support, and the dude that gets uploaded, which looks like they're already set for a second season. Andy Olo is the tech support girl, and Robbie Amell is the main actor, plays Nathan Brown. She plays Nora Antony. She's trying to convince her dad to get uploaded because he's sick. It's kind of one of the side plots that's going on. You also have another angel coworker that you kind of see her relationship with basically a friend inside this virtual heaven. And he is more of a douchebag than the original guy. Just really interesting. There's a scene where they go into the dark web, like they're trying to get, I forget what they're initially getting, but they take this kid he's like, I think he's like 7 in the like the heaven, like he's stuck at 7 years, looks 7, but he's been there for 18 years. So he's old. He's like, he has like the experience of an older person, but he's stuck in a child's body. So they go to this like dark web thing that's like this tear in the programming, and they're able to go, and it's a place where you can get just kind of different stuff, different hacks to improve and change your experience in this afterlife heaven. Just like any computer software, there are vulnerabilities, and there's a scene where they go and take advantage of it, and the kid ends up getting a tattoo hack that makes him age, gets him into puberty or whatever. So he wakes up the next morning, and I didn't notice the first time watching it. I'd noticed the second time watching that he turns into, eventually you find out that he turns into a girl. So he like accidentally gets a tattoo that makes him transition into a teenage girl. But they still use the actor's voice as the kid. So that and her hair is short. Like the way it's done, it didn't really, not until kind of walking through everywhere, the voice doesn't really fit the face, and walking through the lobby, took his shirt off, like the first thing he did when he woke up, took his shirt off or her shirt off to walk through the lobby, and everybody's like staring and like, oh, like some people really enjoy it, and not until like somebody goes to cover her up with a jacket do you see breastises and it's a very split second thing where you're like, oh, it's like just to identify the gender of the person. Like, I didn't understand why people were acting like they didn't do a good job of portraying the fact that he transitioned into a girl. Although they do kind of go into it, how the tattoo he got was of 2 X's instead of an XY. So it was his own fault for getting the wrong genetic code or whatever. But really, I really enjoy this universe. It ends on a cliffhanger, which is kind of weird, where the guy who's like falling in love with his angel is still like, the only reason he's there is because his girlfriend is rich and they have a family thing with this company. So he's uploaded there, and she's in control of all of his money, control of everything. And he's finding that out while also falling in love. But you find out at the end of the season that she uploads herself, which doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, like, her character doesn't seem like somebody that would go to those lengths to, like, upload yourself. Unless you can upload yourself without dying. Maybe that's what she did. I don't know. Maybe it'll be answered in season 2. But definitely check out Upload on Amazon. It's a fun, lighthearted, but very interesting sci-fi world that I really enjoyed. It's a really cool show. So go check it out. But yeah, Upload, my number 5 pick for 2020. My number 4 pick technically came out in 2019. It was a YouTube original series that later went to Amazon Prime. But that show, my number 4 pick, top 5 TV series of 2020 is Wayne. New show on Amazon Prime, originally YouTube Red original, but YouTube Red, I believe, is no longer a streaming service, so Amazon Prime picked it up, and I love this show. Originally heard this recommended by Doug Benson on one of his podcasts, potentially Doug Loves Movies or Wide World of Doug's. I can't remember. But it's an amazing show that I just got hooked on. It's reminds me a lot. There's a Netflix show, UK show called End of the Fucking World, which reminds me a lot of Wayne. Both are kind of dark comedies. Both follow two high school teenagers, guy and a girl, as they go on like a road trip. But very dark, very violent, both of them, and but with, a sense of humor, with a sense of heart, and it's just my cup of tea. I don't know. I really love this. So the premise is, the 16-year-old kid named Wayne lives in Boston and decides to go on a road trip with his new friend Dell down to Florida to get back his dad's Trans Am that was stolen from him after his dad passes away. And Wayne is kind of an epic dude. He is a dude that seeks revenge on everybody who does wrong to him or anybody he cares about. So he's kind of a Robin Hood type of a character in that sense. Just kind of, it's funny, like the moments where where he seeks revenge remind me of the moments in Me, Myself, and Irene where Jim Carrey's character changes into the badass who gets back at people. Very similar in a lot of ways. Those kind of moments where and even the music in Wayne is very pronounced. Very pronounced kind of soundtrack that this show has, where very kind of rock and very aggressive, very similar in a lot of ways, like I was saying, the Me, Myself, and Irene moments. Just great. The accents are great, having the thick Massachusetts, Boston accents. And then you have the on the other side, you have the Florida kind of white trash Florida kind of accents, and it's him and Dell going on this road trip. Then you also have he's mixed up. Obviously, there's things that he does in Boston before he leaves, which cause the police to be after him, because they think, at first they think one thing, and then they kind of realize that they could be wrong, that they may be going on this mission for other reasons. And then also Dell's family are on the chase as well, because their daughter just gets taken away. But it's good. There's episodes that focus on different characters. So there's episodes where you see Dell's kind of backstory, which is crazy. You get to see the kind of the backstory of Dell's family, which really gives them a lot of heart, because they're very they're a lot of this show is kind of like white trashy type of people, but you see what events lead them to be that way, and you see how easily like just a sweet normal family can get turned on its head from just basic life. Just a few bad things happen in life that really change the dynamic of how you're living, and next thing you know, you're living a completely different existence. And this show does a great job at showing, kind of where everybody's coming from. I love the characters. Wayne obviously is amazing. There's so much heart. Like, he's like clearly a damaged kid, and like it takes a while to realize that you almost think he's like an asshole bully guy, but then you realize why he's doing those things, and it's to get revenge for the people he cares about. So you end up, you end up rooting for him, but then you also end up rooting for all these other people, even people that would be considered antagonists or enemies. You see how they got to be that way, and you have sympathy for him. You have sympathy for him, and you realize that the characters are far more complex than just or a two-dimensional kind of just a shitty person like Dell's. There's an episode that shows the backstory of Dell's family, and it's just like it completely changes your perspective on them, and like you see why they act the way they do, because it's everybody's damaged in this movie, right? Or in the show, like Wayne is damaged, Dell is damaged, her family is damaged. And they come from a culture in Boston, Massachusetts, where, just being damaged is handled in a completely different way than if it happened in like LA, right? There's no therapy, uh, you know, there's no getting any mental help. There's no medication. It's like tough it up. It's like tough it up society, suck it up, stop crying, baby. It's that kind of machismo, kind of very toxic in a lot of ways. Very similar to what's wrong with our culture today concerning the vaccine. It's like, oh, just go out there and deal with it, you pussy, kind of a thing. Whereas, these people don't have to be damaged. They can get therapy, and they can get help, and they can get support to kind of help get them through the tragedies that they've dealt with. Um, but yeah, it's a really fun show. I don't know if there's going to be uh, more episodes. I don't see why not. I don't know how popular the show is. It came out last year, 2019, but it hit Amazon, I believe, this year. But it's just great, a road trip show. And if you like Wayne, also, if you go, which I highly recommend, go watch Wayne. If you don't have Amazon Prime, you can get a free trial with my link, inspireddisorder.com/prime. Go watch it. Get through the first episode, right? You may not like it. It takes a while before you see what the show is, right? They're kind of like characters that you like. They're not characters that you would like right off the bat. But once you see why they are acting the way they act, you start to get the heart of the show, and I think it will draw you in. It'll get you hooked. But if you like Wayne, I would also recommend checking out End of the Fucking World, which I believe there's 2 seasons of, which is a crazy show, a little bit different of a show, but kind of in the similar type of vein as Wayne is. Both like kind of dark comedies, you know, and Wayne's great. It's like, foul language in Wayne, obviously, people fighting, a lot of violence, but it's not like, it's kind of cartoony in some aspects. I mean, definitely cartoony in some aspects, but also like he's just like a badass. There's this kind of a stupid scene actually where Wayne gets caught. He gets like he gets caught trespassing. He gets tied up, and they're gonna let him go, but he has to do the kind of the knife thing where you put your hand flat out on the table and then you stab between your fingers with a knife. And if he does it as fast as this other chick does it, then they'll let him go. Really kind of the worst of the writing in the entire show. So I'm sorry that this is my example of bringing it up. But Wayne is such a badass that even after a thing happens where he doesn't even have to do that, he ends up just stabbing himself in the hand just to show these people how little of a fuck he gives. Like, he's somebody that, like, it's almost like a John Wick mentality where it's like he's willing to do so much worse to himself than anybody else. That gives him the freedom to just wreck shit, to wreck shit in a way that most people wouldn't even like understand, wouldn't expect, right? Because only somebody who's like willing to do worse, you're like, if you're like a suicidal, you've got nothing else to live for, you're like, fuck everybody, then like, what are you gonna do? That's like it's like a crazy kind of demented level of freedom that most people don't have, where they're just like pain and suffering mean nothing to me. Like, I've experienced the plateaus of those things. So there's nothing you can do to bring me to that level again. So check this out, kind of a thing. And it's badass in the best ways. And the character's amazing. The writing is amazing for the rest of the show. There's not as much kind of wackiness as that one scene I'm bringing up. But highly recommend checking out Wayne on Amazon Prime. You won't regret it. Watch it and tell me thank you in the comments for recommending it to you, because you'll like it. It's my number 4 pick for 2020. My number 3 pick is a limited series. I don't think there is or would be a second season of it, but it was a show that had me in tears, literally in tears through the end of it. And that is my number 3 pick for my top 5 2020 TV series. Is Hollywood show, a series on Netflix that I had, it's been out for a few weeks, and I had heard a couple people on podcasts mentioning, finally checked it out. I've been binging a lot of TV shows recently, looking for things that are just ways to mentally unplug from the life situations that we're all dealing with right now. And Hollywood was surprisingly good. I don't really know what to expect. I kind of knew it was old-timey Hollywood, but that's about it. But the premise is it's crazy. So it's Hollywood post-World War II. A lot of ex-soldiers and stuff are in Hollywood trying to become actors. It follows a lot of kind of up-and-coming actors trying to get work during this time. But it also, the premise, how it starts is there was this gas station that doubles as like a gigolo brothel in a way. There's like people pull up to this gas station, men and women, and then they would, say, take me to Dreamland. And that was the code word to get one of these good-looking young gas station attendants to go hang out with you and have sex with you. So at that time, part of it was kind of the underground way for people who are gay or wives that have, husbands that are cheating on them, gave them an outlet for their sexual energy. And especially the LGBTQ community, as far as, back then it was illegal to be gay, which is insane. Like, this show tackles a lot of stuff, right? So that's kind of the overall premise, how like they're trying to make money, and within that they start networking and they start seeing different people in the industry, and then things kind of get going and start bubbling up for them. But you're definitely seeing the dark side of Hollywood. You're seeing kind of the Hollywood that I think Weinstein dreamed of. But yeah, this show really does a lot to champion the underdogs, especially of that time, the minorities of the time, the racial minorities, the sexual minorities of the time, um, and really tackles that. So it's very much it's sad in a lot of ways that a lot of the things that this show is dealing with and talks about are things that are currently going on in modern day 2020 with old school white supremacy and just bigotry and hatred. This movie, or this show, I should say, deals with a lot of that, with just amazing writing, great acting. I love all the characters, but it's also about, like, as a creative person, as an artist, as somebody who makes stuff and puts it out into the world. This show is so much about just creating art. It's so much about breaking the rules of creating art, especially in like the movie industry. There's a lot of quote unquote rules, especially back then, of how things were done. Like, you can't have, like, if you had a black lead in your movie, then a lot of theaters, especially in the South, wouldn't show your movie. You'd be boycotted. It was just like, it was a type of racism that not only just racism, but just they were anti homosexual as well. And it was systematic, where it's like you can't live a life, you can't make a living if you are out as somebody who's gay. You can't make a living if you're a black kid wanting to write a movie. But this show shows like underdogs persevering. And it's just like towards the end, like the beginning of the show is really crazy because you're seeing this gas station gigolo setup. And then you're kind of getting into like the underdogs, the racially and sexually oppressed. And then it really turns into like this amazing story. Very Tarantino in a way. Like, Tarantino's newest kind of trend in his movies are to alter history. Like, he sets up these things like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Inglourious Bastards, where it's this whole setup, but then there's this end twist that is such a payoff because it's like this historical revenge twist. Like, killing Hitler is like something that is, I'm sure, dreamt of by all of the people that were oppressed by the Nazis, or with the not Zodiac killer, whatever that killer was that was going to kill that chick's name in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I can't even think about it. My brain didn't think I was going that deep. But that's what Tarantino has done, where he doesn't care about being historically accurate. In fact, it's like it's inaccurate because it's done it like the impact of what happens is so much more visceral because it's something that you never would have thought would happen because it's not even historically accurate to what the actual events were. And this movie does that in a lot of ways. It's like they're making this movie called Meg, written by a black kid, directed, first-time director who's quote-unquote mixed race. He's supposed to be half Asian. He's trying to revitalize the career of this Asian actress that kind of got snubbed for this amazing performance. I don't think, or maybe she just never got cast for this performance. His girlfriend is black, and she's trying to get the lead role in this movie that gets greenlit. So it's like these people, these underdogs in Hollywood that are coming together. The wife of the studio head that's producing the movie, the studio head has a heart attack, so she takes over running the studio, so she's able to greenlight all of these crazy. It's just like, so you're following the kind of stressful nature of how a movie was made potentially back then, but also a movie that's being made that is breaking all of the rules of Hollywood in so many ways. And it's just, I was addicted to this show. It was so good. And the ending of the show, the ending of the season, I think it's the last episode where they're at the Academy Awards, was just like like there's a dash of reality. Like Rock Hudson is one of the characters who's like closeted gay, but in the show he comes out. Like there's this big statement where his boyfriend is the screenwriter, the black kid who wrote the screenplay that the movie was based on, and they go to the Academy Awards and they come out as it's just, and how everything's it was just from top to bottom an amazing show, and I hope it goes more. But the kind of the altered history, because I don't think that movie ever existed. I'm pretty sure that a bunch of minorities didn't win Oscars all in the same year, let alone a movie being produced that would break so many rules. But man, it like made my heart feel so good to like see it, like so emotional watching it. So good, so good. Just interesting, new. All the characters are fleshed out and great. Like just so much of the show is amazing. So if you're looking for a really amazing, I don't know where they're gonna go in season 2, but or if there's a season 2, I hope there's a season 2. But it was amazing. If not, even if it's just a single season and it's done, man, it's just so good. By the end, it's just like my heart was exploding. Because it's just so good. Because you fall in love with these people, you're rooting for them, and they're living in a time where it's like exponentially more difficult for them to find success in what they're trying to do. And it's just, I really loved it. So if you have Netflix, which everybody of course does, go check out Hollywood. It's a must watch. That's my number 3 pick for 2020 is Hollywood. My number 2 pick, my top 5 TV series of 2020. My number 2 pick is The Last Dance, a documentary miniseries, just hit Netflix. It was previously only available through ESPN Plus, but I believe it's a joint partnership or production with Netflix. So finally showed up on the Netflix thing, and I binged the hell out of this thing. Finished it all in one day. Stayed up very late. I was up until the next morning. I think it's like 10 hours of documentary. And it is amazing. I myself was a huge Bulls fan. I was literally wearing my Jordan jersey that's all but worn away while watching it. But I was a huge Bulls fan during this time. I was playing basketball daily, playing pickup basketball daily during this time. I was in middle school, high school around this era of the Bulls and Michael Jordan's reign over the NBA. So I was, big fan of Michael Jordan, big fan of basketball back then. Kind of fell off watching basketball around the time when LeBron James got drafted, and like maybe a year or two after that, I kind of just fell off. But during this time, this era, I was a huge basketball fan and a huge Jordan fan. So watching this documentary series was amazing. Especially, I mean, it filled in a lot of blanks because I was a kid, so I didn't know the drama necessarily. And one of the aspects of this series shows the kind of rivalries that the Bulls had with these different teams over the years, and forced them, like the rivalry with the Pistons, forced them to work out a lot more and play a rougher game, or at least get used to playing a rougher game. So then when they got into a similar rivalry with New York, they were able to handle it because they knew what it was like to play with a team that played rough, I guess you could say. But yeah, it really filled in a lot. It was very interesting seeing a lot of the backstory. Also just seeing Jordan. So the way this documentary series, the storytelling in this documentary series was told is amazing. It was amazing. Basically, it focuses on the final season of the second three-peat of the Bulls, when it's, a lot of things are up in the air. The team wants to get rid of, the organization, I should say, wants to get rid of Phil Jackson, the head coach. Michael Jordan refusing to play for any other coach. So it was also his potential, retirement. The franchise, they wanted to rebuild the team, as if it were that easy to just build another successful dynasty. So it takes the drama of that final season, and then it flashes back to tell the kind of story of Michael Jordan and a lot of the other teammates on how they got to that final season and the ride. I mean, you want to talk about Michael Jordan. I mean, it's crazy that there's even that much of a discussion of the best of all time, the greatest of all time, to see what Michael Jordan did with his team and to see how he not only got the first three-peat, the first 3 championships back to back to back, but also to like leave the sport, play baseball, which if he stayed with baseball, he could have been a decent baseball player, but then decided to go back to basketball. And when he went back, was able to, I mean, they brought in a very needed piece with Dennis Rodman, but he was able to bring that team back to championship ways, and like just he was like the dictator manager of that team. He forced everybody when they were getting beat up by the Pistons. He encouraged everybody to start lifting weights. I mean, he evolved the Bulls franchise when he showed up. And just I think how the NBA ran when Jordan was first drafted was crazy. They weren't really athletes. I mean, they were, but they weren't training and practicing and living as if they were elite athletes. They were just, it's kind of like semi-pro in a lot of ways. They were like, drinking and doing drugs and just hanging out and just not really focused on getting better necessarily. And through the years of after Jordan got there and started to get better and started to take over, and then once they finally started winning championships, he took it to another gear, and he forced everybody to lift their game up and do more and be more. And in that, I could see how he would be an asshole. A lot of people would think that he's an asshole, but without him being an asshole, then they wouldn't have been the Bulls franchise that they were. And also just getting to see the interviews with Michael Jordan and him discussing things and his different problems with different players over the years, but also just how much he cared. Like, he just cared about the sport so much. So it's amazing. The storytelling's amazing. You get to see like the backstory of not only Jordan, but you get to see so many players. You get to see Phil Jackson's kind of backstory. You get to see Scottie Pippen's story. How Scottie Pippen was like one of the lowest paid players in the league for so much. Like, he signed this ridiculously long contract that just made him, like, he signed this contract before the NBA got to, like, started raking in the money. So when they did, he was fucked. He was just screwed because he had this like 7-year contract where he was just not getting paid what he should have been getting paid, considering how amazing he was for that team. And then also Rodman. You get to see Rodman's kind of, I mean, the crazy thing is you get to see Rodman when he played for the Pistons, and they were the big rivals of the Bulls. And then you see, 2-3 years later, after Jordan comes back and they need to fill in that spot, they need to fill in, that spot to get the rebounds and just to kind of be that bulldog to just kind of bully his way into getting. I mean, Dennis Rodman would sacrifice his body to complete plays. He was like the most like flailing, unorthodox player, but like would give everything to get the play done and to get the ball back. It was amazing. It was so awesome to see that second team of the Bulls and how they just were able to do all of the things. Yeah, it's amazing. And then you get to see the whole flu game, which ended up being actually he was food poisoned from this pizza joint in Utah. I remember watching that game live and just like being That was like his second run. The second three-peat was during, I think, my last 3 years in high school, which I was playing basketball, and I'd bring, like, I was an art nerd in high school. I would have my portfolio of artwork under one arm, and I would have my basketball under another arm. And every lunch, and I think before class started, we would be playing pickup basketball, me and my friends. And it was just one of those. It was a crazy kind of weird, kind of crazy that was my life in high school. But yeah. So the series means it like brought back all that nostalgia, all those crazy times of my life back then. And it's a crazy story also because Jordan was not only like the best basketball player, in my opinion, to ever play the game, and I think that LeBron and Kobe are Kobe had a similar thing where he became kind of the leader of the team. In some ways, he was kind of a whiny little bitch a lot of the times. Rest in peace. But or even LeBron James kind of doing a similar thing. I don't know how much of like a drill sergeant leader he is when he goes to a team, but he's definitely has the ability to elevate a team to become a champion. But Jordan, not only being the best, he's one of the few people who are the best at their sport to basically leave at the top of his game. Even though he came back and he was getting a little older, he's taking a lot. He's a lot less driving to the hole, a lot more jump shots from far out. But he was still winning championships. And then he was in a lot of ways forced to retire, and how heartbreaking that is to him that he wasn't able to play one more season. Just bring the team back and see how many championships they can win with that team. But they had a long-standing problem with the manager, the owner. I think he was the general manager of the Bulls, who was able to put that team together in the first place, but then, ultimately destroyed it, for trying to do too much. Just so amazing. It's also cool to see Jordan's relationship with his dad. And then after his dad passed, how he had that relationship with one of the security guard guys, one of his security detail. Just an overall amazing documentary. I highly recommend it. Whether you're into basketball or not, it's just a well-told story, a one-of-a-kind story that you're never going to see. That kind of what they were able to do, what those teams were able to do. Highly recommend it. It's on Netflix now, The Last Dance. But I loved it so much. The Last Dance, it was an amazing watch. That was also on Netflix. But my number one series of 2020 out of all five, my number one, a show that I've rewatched multiple times, is Dave show on FXX, which I consumed via Hulu. The final episode just came out this past week, and I have been a huge fan since the first episode. Now, Dave, the show based on Lil Dicky, who is Dave Bird. Lil Dicky's his rapper name, and this is kind of his story about him. It's kind of like Crashing is to comedy. This is to rap in a lot of ways, especially like kind of current day rap and social media and going viral and just kind of and also just how genres and art forms evolve. But yeah, anyway, I've been a fan of Lil Dicky to a small extent. I'm familiar with his raps and his viralness. I used to wake up every morning and look at what was trending on Reddit, which videos were trending. This was like probably close to a decade ago. And I remember he would pop up all the time on either Reddit or also World Star. I would hop over there too. But he was, he's been around for a while. And I heard the show. I forget how I initially heard about this show, but it was intriguing. Andrew Santino is in the show as well, who's hilarious. His podcast, Whiskey Ginger, as well as Bad Friends with Bobby Lee. Great. He plays his friend, his roommate. Am I saying his name right? For some reason, it seems like I'm saying his name wrong. Andrew Santino. His girlfriend, like all the characters in this show are amazing. His girlfriend, her roommate, his engineer friend from like childhood friend, Gata, who's like kind of the new friend of the group, and even his storyline. This whole season is amazing. Let me say, I love this show. I've watched every episode. Again, like every Thursday, a new episode would come out on Hulu, and I would rewatch all the previous episodes leading up to that one. So each week, I would rewatch everything, and even after I watched the full season, I probably rewatched it 3 times. And I'll probably rewatch it many, many more. It's just a show that I relate to in a lot of ways as an artist, as somebody who produces podcasts, as just somebody who creates things. And trying to navigate the unknown world of the internet and trying to do what's best for my art, trying to balance working on like my passion of creating things with relationships, which I haven't been in a relationship in a long time. And that's, I mean, you can kind of see there's an episode towards the end, like second to last episode, they're going to a wedding. And it's kind of the final breaking point for his relationship with his girlfriend, their relationship is amazing. But that there's an argument that happens that like was the most well-written version of what emotions and things were going on, and probably the end of my last relationship many, many years ago, where I was doing a lot of things creatively. And I was getting a lot of traction doing a lot of the things I was doing, and, the relationship suffered, and then, it ended. And it was kind of, I wasn't at the same, like, I was never making money, but it's like when people start taking notice of the work you do, you try to build off of that. Anyway, that was amazing. The whole idea of spoiling the magic, like the part of her speech at this wedding is almost a summary of her view of their relationship together, and how through the whole season she's trying to get it. Like when it first starts, she's never even heard him rap to her. So she's trying to get him to rap, and she's really trying to see how the cookie is made. See how the cake is made. What's the saying? Anyway, and when she finally does, and when it starts to become a bigger part of it, it ruins the magic of what was Little Dicky and their relationship together. There's also like his whole sex life is hilarious. There's amazing callbacks. There's amazing foreshadowing in the show, but there's a milking table, which is the end. Like there are so many ends of episodes. Like there's an episode where the last line is a thrift shop. And it's the funniest thing ever. It's like the last word said. Like he puts a period on his episodes like nobody else does. The milking table episode, there's like not even words. It's just a moment that really punctuates that episode. So many great things. But yeah, that milking table scene was hilarious also. I love Dave, the character of Dave. He's like so confident in his awkwardness. He's like one with himself and knows what he wants out of his career. Like he's very confident in what he wants. He's an awkward person and runs into situations that he's like new to, because he's like, this is taking place in his early 20s, where he's kind of trying to break in, trying to, record stuff, and trying to collaborate with people that are more well-known to it's kind of similar to how podcasts grow. If you want to grow a podcast, and you're a podcast that does interviews, just try and get people that have bigger audiences than you, and then just keep growing. Start small, and then just keep getting more and more people, and that's how Tim Ferriss did it. That's how I did it when I used to have people on podcast interviews. And this is how he's doing it in the rap world, where, you know, getting people to rap with you on a track is a way to help grow your audience. And it's part of like networking and stuff, all the things I'm not doing right now currently. But yeah, I love so much of this. Gata is amazing. There's a scene where there's an episode that's pretty much about him and him being bipolar. And there's a scene where when he tells Dave and Santino's character and, you know, the people while they're rehearsing, they're about to do like their big, like first big open for Meek Mill, big audience. You know, it's the first time performing live as a real group. And Gata's the hype man, and he was getting manic, so he took too much medication. Now he's really like just sluggish and not for a hype man, the kind of polar opposite you would want. And he breaks down and tells him he's bipolar, and he's like telling why he loves all of the different people, like, and his voice is shaking. Like there's so much heart, so much realness, and so much heart in this show. But that's like, you want to fall in love with a character. I love all of these characters. There's an episode that focuses on his engineer, his buddy from childhood, and his, you know, this graphic designer girl who's the roommates with Dickie's girlfriend, and that whole their relationship I love. Like everything, so much. And there's towards the end where Dickie's like starting to get like representation, but he's worried that they're gonna fuck with his art. Meanwhile, he's talking to this graphic designer graphic designers, all they do is sacrifice, like their conversation is, would you sacrifice your art for money? And, you know, she's a graphic designer. She does like literally like tons of options of design for somebody to come and pick and choose. And like being a graphic designer is really tough. Like you have to be able to let people that don't know anything about art fuck with your shit constantly. That's why I'm very picky with who I work with. But yeah, I loved all of the show. Every episode of the show. How the show ends is amazing. It's amazing. I can't wait for season 2. I hope there's a season 2. I love every character. I hope this show runs for seasons. I think Dave Bird this being his first show that he's created, his first scripted thing that he's done, and executive produced. It's amazing. I think, you know, he's instantly one of my new favorite artists, Dave Bird. Who would have thought? Little Dicky. How about that? Somebody suck me! But that is my top 5 TV series of 2020. Let's break it down one more time. Starting with number 5 is Upload on Amazon Prime. Number 4 is Wayne, also on Amazon Prime. Number 3 is Hollywood on Netflix. Number 2, The Last Dance on Netflix. And number 1, an FX show that I watched on Hulu, Dave. Those are my top 5 TV series of 2020. Let me know what your top 5 are in the comments. I want to know what you enjoyed this year, and maybe I will check them out. Make sure you support our sponsor, the official coffee purveyor of the Ray Taylor Show. That is right, people. Head on over to stationhousecoffee.com and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. That is where you can get yourself some small batch, single origin, premium coffee brewed in Thetford Center, Vermont, and shipped directly to you. Let them know that I sent you to stationhousecoffee.com and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!